This is CJ with the GOAT Sports Talk. Of course, talking about Kevin Durant. He basically came out today, basically saying that people want them and the Warriors to be underpaid, so they don't get the salaries they deserve. And part of it is basically, people are getting on Kevin Durant about not taking a bigger deal in order to basically maximize his money. He could have, pretty much taken a lot more, but he took a lot less so they could re-sign Sean Livingston and Andre Iguodala. Also, they're able to add Nick Young. So when you look at their team, they even brought back, I believe, JaVale McGee. So pretty much everybody's coming back, plus, another scorer off the bench in Nick Young, who's a very good three-point shooter, and he's an athletic wing as well. So when you look at their team, a lot of people are upset about it, but it is what it is. This is part of, what happens when you have a team that has to, win championships, and you have a salary cap, and you got certain players that are willing to make those type of sacrifices. Now, we know that Kevin Durant makes a lot of money off the court with his Nike deal. He also has made a ton of money, early on in his career already. He's not even 30. So it's kind of, for him, the money doesn't really matter. I mean, if you've seen his YouTube page, he does have a YouTube page. He has a nice crib over in LA looking over pretty much, the scenery. I mean, it's nice. You can imagine he has a very nice crib out there also in the Bay Area. So he's not hurting for money, man. When you just think about it, for some of these guys, they're looking at it from a logical standpoint and probably saying, you know what, I don't need to make as much money. I've made a ton of money. By the end of my career, I'm still going to make, $300 to $400 million playing basketball alone outside of my Nike contract. I have more than enough for a few lifetimes. He's looking at a legacy standpoint, and I think he's looking at it from the standpoint of he doesn't want to regret not winning a bunch of titles, because in his eyes, maybe he has a chance to catch up to LeBron and win 3, or catch up to Kobe and win 5, or catch up to Jordan and win 6. And at the end of the day, and just like I said before, would I like competitive advantage in the NBA to where maybe you do have not a super duper teams, but you have super teams? Maybe you have 6 to 8, teams that have, 3 all-star players, maybe 1 or 2 teams here and there that might have what you would consider 2 superstar players. Yeah, that's cool, for competitive reasons. But at the end of the day, from a salary cap perspective, the Golden State Warriors were able to sign him because guess what? They had a discounted contract under Steph Curry because of his injuries. He was not getting paid a lot of money. And who knew that years later it would have led room to sign a former MVP, league scoring champion who's still in his prime to get on their team while they had, 3 all-star players on their squad. And it just happened to just work out for them. It is what it is. So at the end of the day, if this works out for Durant, he should be able to win a title next year. I think if they don't win a title next year, I think it will be somewhat of a disappointment because he took the pay cut and he brought guys back and they still didn't win. So, that would probably be the disappointment. But if he wins a championship again next year, then it'll be worth the sacrifice, and he'll probably be willing to do it again moving forward, and being able to continue it going, because those guys will be in their prime, barring injury, for the foreseeable, probably 3 to 4 years minimum, with the way those guys play. So, it is what it is. I'm going to kind of go briefly into this article. It says here that Kevin Durant said he took things into his own hands to keep the Golden State Warriors together by signing for less than he could have, and dismissed criticism for his decision. So it says here that Durant could have secured a maximum of $34 million per year from the Warriors, but signed a $25.9 million deal this season, less than he made in the 2016-17 season, which was $26.5 million. He explained his decision to The Athletic on Thursday, saying he wanted to ensure that Andre Iguodala, Sean Livingston, and Steph Curry could get paid what they deserve. And that's true to a certain degree, because Steph Curry, remember, he was on that other deal, and Steph Curry is one of the top players in the league, and he was needed to be compensated with a super max deal, pretty much of $40 million a year, because they had him on a discount for a long time, and the NBA also even benefited from the rise of Steph Curry as well. So he does deserve that money, and I think that it was a good move by Kevin Durant, because at the end of the day, he did come to a team that already had a face of their franchise, which is Steph Curry. And I still would say he is the face of the franchise. Even though Kevin Durant is the better player, it is what it is. He's 7 foot, with a great wingspan, handle, pull up from 30, hey, like Stephen A. Smith say, and he's a good defender as well. He's a great shooter. He has all the packages of a deadly, perimeter player. Of course, he's probably missing some aspects of his game, particularly, from a post-game perspective. Maybe you would say he doesn't create as well as he probably should on the level of like a LeBron James. But other than that, he's an offensive weapon. He's a juggernaut on the court, and he's hard to stop. And he's in his prime. So it is what it is. Now, but go ahead and read this. It says, I just took a step back and let the chips fall where they may. Then I took it in my hands. I wanted to keep the team together, and I thought it was going to keep help ownership bring all the guys back. And on top of that, it's my money. It's my decision. I can do what the hell I want with it. And what it is that a lot of guys have problems, because of the fact that here it is, you're what I would say the number 2 player in the league after LeBron James. And you got guys that signed contracts this summer that are making more than Kevin Durant. And that's not ultimately how it's supposed to be. But again, we're not in, soccer. This is not world football soccer where you can just throw money at Lionel Messi and Ronaldo any amount of money that they want per week and just everything is good. You know what I'm saying? It just doesn't work like that. We have salary caps in the NBA, and for that very reason, that's the reason why the system's kind of jacked up, because, guys that are really elite players, transcendent, once in a generation level talents, are not being able to be compensated for what they do. And you got guys that have played in the league, the same amount of years as LeBron, and they're basically have made about the same amount or more than him over the course of his career. And it just doesn't make sense, but this is how the NBA had it set up at the end of the day. Okay? And remember, Jordan was getting paid $35 million back in 96, 97, 98. That's equivalent probably right now to making $50 million a year, So, but again, Jordan didn't even make that much money over the course of his career. In fact, Scottie Pippen had made a lot more money because at the time he came in, the money had increased of what they can play to players versus back when Jordan first got in the league. They weren't really playing those guys. Even the best players were only getting paid like a couple of mil a year. Or, back at that time, if you were even the best player in the league back in the 80s. But again, just for inflation, the money sometimes will translate to, what it would be considering how much cars cost of living, homes were a lot cheaper back then. So it just all depends on how you look at it. So I'm not going to criticize him as far as him doing the money thing. I understand where people's are having problems with it because of they just don't think it's fair to the league to have, it's not fair that the league is able to have players do this. But again, if players want to do this, who's not going to complain? The owners. If LeBron is going to be willing to go to like Houston let's say, and he says, you know what, I'm going to sign a $20 million deal, 1-year deal next year with the Rockets, and I'm going to play with, Chris Paul and James Harden and Eric Gordon and and maybe some other like really good role players or whatever, and they put together a super team down in Houston, the owner of the Houston Rockets is going to be happy about it. Guess who's not going to be happy about that type of move of being able to keep players, or maybe even have Carmelo come down? It might be 4 of them, the whole Banana Boat crew, the conspiracy. Maybe even have Dwayne Wade coming off the bench paying him maybe $5 to $10 million, and they do something like that. People are going to be like, man, that's unfair. But then some owners is going to hate because they didn't get that deal. But at the end of the day, they're going to say, well, look, what if I have that situation where I could pay a super duper star that should be getting paid $40 million a year according to his real contract worth, according to the NBA, of course, and he's willing to take $20 million a year. They take that any day of the week. So at the end of the day, it is what it is. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of how I look at it, man. I'm not going to hate on Durant. Durant understands what he wants to do, and he values his legacy long term over the money. And I think that, maybe moving forward, he probably feels he'll be rewarded, with a big contract if somehow, some way, maybe one of these other guys get traded and there's room for him to do it, or the salary cap increases to a level where he could get that kind of bread. So that's pretty much what it is. Maybe let me know what you think. Like, comment, subscribe. I'm out.